Okay, this part of the presentation is to go into more depth about some of the things that we were mentioning earlier, particularly how to make an essence by the crystal essence method. First, a geode. This is a geode. I would advise not to get such a big one, maybe a smaller one, because schlepping something around like that in your backpack when you're walking in the woods is not going to be too easy. But that's what a geode is. Here's another geode. This is blue lace agate and clear quartz crystal. This was my first geode that I ever bought. Traditionally, the Wildflower method or the sun method, they use a glass bowl, spring water, and then they cut the flowers and allow the flowers to drop into the water themselves and place that out into the open, into the sun for a period of time. And then they feel that the vibration or the essence is then infused in the water. With the crystal essence method, we don't need to do that. And we don't need to cut flowers either. I know it's not necessarily the traditional aspect, but maybe it's the progression of where essences is going, is that with the uncut essence way of making it flower essences, it allows you to obtain wildflowers like I do, or orchids that you can't go around cutting and using the sun method. So conines, crystals, and the uncut method is how Wildflower produces all its essences. The geode itself, here we are talking about bluebells and celandine and ramson and the flower divas, but what about the mineral kingdom? When I first started out, I didn't really understand that. It wasn't until later that I thought that this first geode, because it was blue lace agate and clear quartz, would help me with clear communication, and it certainly did. But I didn't realize that at the point of production, within the coning, making the essence, that the mineral diva wanted to be involved and was involved. So Wildflower produces mineral and flower essences because of the way it produces essences. When we, as a therapist, and particularly as I was saying with the cranial work that I was doing and that fluctuating energy field, the craniosacral rhythm, or that I explained earlier, the mineral essence seems to ground the individual, the client, where the flower essence seems to lift out. So the combination of mineral as well as flower, when we're using it as a healing tool, it's a nice little combination. I didn't quite get that in the beginning, and I didn't quite get that mineral essence would be within the essence too, but it is. So when you're using a crystal geode, it will be within that too. It also seems to bring a fusion of the flower and mineral together that's different compared to if you had blue lace agate as an essence, and then whichever flower you were making, and then mix them together. It's a different kind of fusion. The coning together point of production offers a symmetry to the two that is how I produce the essences. I find that's very effective in my healing practice. So, what is the actual carrier? Water. Now, of course, like I explained earlier, my cynic and skeptic had a great time of giving me a hard time with water. How can water hold memory? This is what we're all using as a medium to hold the vibration. How on earth can, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? How can water hold memory? Well, if you look at water in its constituents, we know it's H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Hydrogen bonding is basically the name of the game when it comes to water memory. What they've discovered is when they look at the atoms of the hydrogen and the oxygen molecules interacting, they create electrons between them. That interaction through hydrogen bonding makes the atoms, the molecules, become tiny little magnets. They're not strong magnets, it's weak, but for a moment they become magnets. If you then expose the water to another magnetic field, it then changes the constitution of that original magnetic field of the water, influenced by whatever it's exposed to. It's not for long, the memory doesn't hold for long, so what we do at that point of production is that you put brandy or some sort of ethanol, other alcohols, sugar, salt, vinegar, traditionally brandy, that's what we use. As soon as you put the brandy in the water, after you've exposed it to making the essence, it stabilizes the memory of the water to how it was whilst it was being exposed to the flower or when you were creating the essence. So water actually does hold memory, exposed in this way, preserved in this way, and within the conines, the crystal geode, as well as the spirit in the plant, it now becomes quite a heady mix within the flower essence you're making, and the way it's all been memorized within the water itself. So water is really key, and the quality of water is really key, because the minerals, the low-level minerals in the water, also help agitate that magnetic process that I've just spoken to you about. Also the glass jars that you use, the ions that come off the glass jars, all create a more agitated experience for the magnetic fields to change. Of course, then you put the brandy in or whatever preservative and it stabilizes it. When you're making a mother tincture, which is the first tincture, you've got to look at a percentage of 60% brandy or ethanol, whatever alcohol you're using, and then 40% water. That's really important. When you're making stock bottle, which is then you make remedies from the mother, you switch it around. So it's 60% water and 40% alcohol. When you make the mother tincture in that dosage, it stabilizes that for life. Of course, you need to keep that safe, out of direct sunlight, energetically in a quiet space, no Wi-Fi's around it, just give it some space. And that's how you look after the tincture itself. Now, when we look at vibrational medicine, essences, homeopathy, all of this sort of vibrational medicine that we're working with, it's what I discovered through my work, it's really important to get the full coherence of something, particularly if it's energy medicine. So the uncut method of production with the crystal essence method, as I said before, the flower is still attached to the plant, attached to the roots, attached to the location. So the full coherence comes into the water itself when you make an uncut essence, as well as the location. Like Evelyn, the flower essence diva that taught me how to make essences, showed me about the energy or the power spots in the land. This collective kind of energy that then will help infuse itself into what you're doing as well and ground it. So, working with divas and flower spirits, you can't just willy-nilly go into this expecting that if you do what I've just said, or even the sun method, or any other production of essences, that you will guarantee that the diva of the plant will actually give permission to give its healing energy. So how do you work with that? From my experience, it's been years of being able to work on my own stuff, look at my own processes, work with essences for a very long time before they even give you a look in. And rightly so. They say that the fairies retreated from human interaction in the way they used to with our ancestors when steel turned up. When man started to make steel, the nature spirits retreated. I suspect because of all of the damage and all of the things that steel can do to cut, dig, create, make. I mean, the very energy that needs to be used to create anything metal or steel. So we have to tread softly and lightly, and I say that metaphorically because it's in our hearts more than anything. So we can't just go, well, you can try, just go out and try and make an essence, but we have to bring a certain sense of decorum and respect back to that world for them to start to notice us. So how do you do that? Well, do you enjoy going out for walks in nature? And if you do, what catches your attention? Are you wowed by being in nature? Are you absolutely dumbstruck when you see that dewdrop reflecting the prism of light from the sun, and as you slightly move your head, you're seeing all the beautiful colours? Are you wowed? Are you moved to tears? That's when your heart starts to get in a line with nature. You've also got to look at how heavy-footed are you, again metaphorically speaking, with your stuff. If you're like really, really angry, or very heavy, dense emotions, and then you're going into nature expecting to communicate with these very fine, delicate beings. Well, you need to look at that and to work on that, to lighten your step, to lighten the heart. They need to see a sense of joy and playfulness in you. I think in our modern world, as we get older, and as adults, we lose that fun and play and that silliness. We have to get drunk or take drugs to end up in that playful place. Because if you do that and you're not, as an adult, you're considered crazy. We've got this displaced aspect that we have relationship with nature, but nature does want to be a part of our healing process. And she, with all her myriads of creations, so want to be part of it. So flower essences is a beautiful way of doing that. So that's my little thing about nature. Just big up for nature and speak for them too, because it is a co-creative experience. You can take this knowledge and you can go out, but unless you're able to connect with the divas themselves, or more importantly, if they want to connect with you, you can be psychic, you can be a medium, you can be being able to contact all the people who have died, but that doesn't mean that you can communicate with the flower spirits. They choose to speak with you. It's their choice. So if you do wish to move down that road, you have to take all of that into consideration and make sure you've got a good pair of shoes, walking shoes, because you're going to be walking a lot. That's what I would advise. Okay, so we've got the coning, we've got the crystal geode, we're explaining the uncut method and the coherence of the full aspect of the plant. So the practical side of, once you've got all of that and you've got permission, and the flower diva is in the coning with you, in that coning with you, what do you do next? Well, you fill the geode with water. Make sure that the water elemental diva is within the coning too, because it's an elemental, it's a spirit too. You want them to be involved. Actually, there's a lot of spirits that want to be involved, and you have to be quite clear with who is coming and going into these conings and these processes, because then the essence itself is pretty loaded as itself with just one spirit with the mineral and the other aspects connected to the ground and the spirit of the earth. So you have to be very clear with that, but that's where the conings can help. So you pour the water into the spring water, into the geode itself. And then, once you've got permission, you bend the flower into the water. Obviously, you're not hurting it or breaking it, or you raise the geode to the flower itself. Now, that's where my skeptic and cynic step in and go, how long do you need to hold that plant for, the flower in the water for? Because with the sun method of production, you have to leave the flowers in the water in the sun for 2 or 3 hours. So what, am I going to be there for 2 and 3 hours? Really? Ask Evelyn. So the flower essence, my flower essence diva, who introduces, is teaching me all of this. So I asked Evelyn to come into the coning. She said, ask Bluebell. So I got Bluebell into the coning, and I asked Bluebell, and I said, Bluebell, what do we do here? How long do I have to sit here with the flower into the water before the infusion's there? And Bluebell very clearly said to me that, you know, it's not about how long that you need to hold my flower or the flower that you're making the essence for in the water. It's whether I give my permission for you to have that, my healing, my blessing. And if I do, it's there already. It's in the water. You don't have to hold it for that long. Now, my skeptic and cynic, they're having a good field day with that. And I'm having a bit of a field day with that. I need to do something, I said to Bluebell. I need to do something. There was a pause in that moment that is as if you could read Bluebell's thoughts. It was like a shake of the head, like, you humans, you've got so much to learn. But I do still do it because I like the ritual of it. I think it's important that the ritual aspect of what we do brings a certain sense of ceremony into what I do. It brings a configuration that I know, they know, that when I'm doing it, and the process kind of has a framework over it. So I do that, even though Bluebell has said that I didn't need to. So as I bend the flower into the water itself, now the flower itself is the most highly energetic part of the plant. So when we spoke about water earlier and the influence of any other magnetic fields influencing itself and changing it, creating memory in water, that's why we use the flower as the access point, because the flower is the most, I mean, the huge amounts of energy goes into creating a flower to the rest of the plant. So as it's bending into, or we're placing the water, the flower into the water itself, I close my eyes and I start to see certain aspects of what's going on. That's a clairvoyant aspect. Clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. Clairvoyant is what you see. Clairaudient is what you hear. Clairsentient is what you feel. Those aspects in working with Evelyn and the conines and making essences have become stronger and stronger for me. So, and I use all of those three aspects to find out what the essence is for. So, as the flower is being placed on the water itself, I close my eyes and what do I feel? What does my body feel like? As we discovered with bluebell and lesser celandine and ramson or wild garlics, those aspects of what I saw, that's now become very fine-tuned. So as I bend that flower in, I open up, what do I feel? As I said with the other flowers, those feelings and those things that I see. But with regards to how long I need to hold it for, and the conversation I just had with bluebell, I see a whole, it's as if the diva itself is this sparkle little light. And in this very geode, I would see it swimming around. I mean, it was like play. It was like doing backstroke. It was like doing front crawl. It was doing breaststroke. I was like, are you taking the mickey out of me here? Or are you just having a good time? Sounds outrageous, doesn't it? But that's what I saw. I saw it so clearly. And so I'm tuning in. Okay, you tell me when you're ready for me to pour the water into my glass jar, ready for a mother tincture. And every time it's ready, that this water is infused and it's good to go, this pillar of light, just whether it's coming up or down, I don't know, and it appears. Once that's there, I then pour it very gently into the glass jar. I go back for some more water, and then I open up the other senses. Clairaudient, what do I hear? What message do you want to talk to me about? What are you good for? I don't know what essences, what flower essences I'm making and what they're good for, because it's been uncharted. Right? But these are the ones I'm being attracted to. It seems producers, not always, but the majority of producers are attracted to the flowers that they need. Dr. Batch, he did exactly the same thing. He'd go out into nature and was drawn to the plants that he needed in himself. So in that process, there's a lot going on. So that clairsentient, clairaudient, and clairvoyant aspect is a really important part of what you're doing. If you don't, if they're not so tuned up, they will get tuned up. And some of us have, clairsentient is more the stronger intuitive aspect that people have when making essences. And if you feel you don't, you can still go with an open heart and still make essences and not necessarily have to have those sensitivities to get the experience, to get the healing, or still to interact with the divas. The divas just want you to interact. But when you're producing them on a commercial level like I am, and to get this skeptic and cynic, in line, I need to make sure that I know what I'm doing. So through that process, I'm able to do that within this work. And that's what I'm presenting. In the old days, way back in time, they used to collect the dewdrops off flowers in the morning. And as did Dr. Batch when he did that, as did Paracelsus, a physician who blended classical medicine in the early 1500s with old pagan or traditional spiritual practices. And he's recorded it, that he used the dewdrops, but them traditionally, and used them to treat people. But then he also, it is again written down, he used the sun method of production, as did the Aborigines, or as do the Aborigines, as did the Native American Indians. But it goes back even longer than that in the texts that we do have in the old European medieval magical traditions, they used to collect the dewdrops as well. But as you can imagine, that's not commercially viable. The sun method, the crystal essence method, and other methods of production to create a mass production is what we're doing here, and what I'm sharing and presenting to you today. So in a minute we'll be finding some appropriate flowers and showing you exactly how we're filling the water and presenting the crystal geode to the flower itself. And good luck. I hope you have fun. Remember, it's all about play. Don't take it all too seriously, and good luck.